Adrian Vale humiliated me in front of 200 guests by asking me to give my own engagement toast to his first love. Celeste Monroe stood beside him in a silver dress, wearing a pendant that looked almost exactly like my ring, smiling as if she had already won. I took off that ring under the crystal lights, placed it beside my untouched champagne, and turned on the voice recorder in my clutch before I said, "Then let me give everyone the truth." For 1 second, the ballroom forgot how to breathe. Adrian's hand froze around his glass. His mother's smile cracked. Celeste's eyes widened just enough for me to know she had not expected the obedient fiancé to bleed in public without lowering her head. In my last life, I had swallowed this moment. In this life, I did not. The engagement ballroom smelled like white roses, expensive champagne, and the kind of money that pretended it had no scent at all. I remembered every inch of it, the marble floor polished until it reflected chandeliers like trapped stars, the long tables dressed in cream silk, the gold-edged name cards, the ice sculpture carved into family crests, heart and veil, melting slowly between towers of champagne glasses. I remembered standing under those lights in my previous life with a smile so perfect my cheeks ached for 2 days. I remembered Adrian Vale standing beside me in a black tuxedo, handsome enough to make people forgive his silence. I remembered Celeste Monroe entering late. I remembered the shift in his eyes. And I remembered the moment he asked me to be kind. "Evelyn," he had said then, voice low, almost bored. "Celeste is overwhelmed. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." I had lowered my head. I had helped her. I had protected his image. I had smiled while everyone whispered. 6 months later, I walked down an aisle toward a man who had never chosen me. 1 year after that, I signed away parts of myself so quietly that no one noticed until there was nothing left to take. 3 years after the wedding, I died alone in a private hospital room while Adrian attended a charity gala with Celeste because she had needed him more. At least, that was the last thing I remembered before opening my eyes again beneath the same ballroom lights, back at the engagement party, back with the ring on my finger, back before I had signed the prenup that tied my personal assets, family voting rights, and charitable foundation access to the Vale Alliance. Back before I had become Adrian's wife. Back before I had mistaken endurance for love. Across the ballroom, Celeste laughed softly at something Adrian said. Her hand rested on his sleeve. It was not intimate enough to be called scandalous. That was always her gift. She knew how to stand close enough to wound me, but far enough to look innocent. Her silver dress shimmered under the lights, pale and fluid, almost bridal. Around her neck hung a diamond pendant shaped like an oval halo. It was not my engagement ring, but it was close, too close. My ring had been custom designed by Adrian's grandmother decades ago. A family heirloom reset for me. An oval diamond framed by small stones, cold and perfect, heavy with expectation. Celeste's pendant had the same shape, the same halo, the same old money restraint. In my previous life, I had told myself it was a coincidence. Now I knew better. I watched Adrian glance at the pendant once, then look away, not surprise, recognition. My fingers went cold. Beside me, my father leaned close. "Smile, Evelyn. The press photographer is turning this way." I smiled, not because he asked, but because the cameras mattered. Evidence always needed witnesses. Adrian's mother, Vivian Vale, crossed the ballroom with the smooth confidence of a woman who had spent her life making other people feel overdressed and underprepared. "Evelyn," she said, kissing the air near my cheek. "You look lovely. A little pale, though." "I'm fine." Her eyes moved to my ring. "Good. Tonight must be flawless. Both families have waited long enough." Both families, not both people. I looked at Adrian again. He had not come to me once since Celeste arrived. The old Evelyn would have gone to him. She would have stood beside him gently, proving to the room that she was not threatened. She would have offered Celeste a warm greeting, maybe even complimented the pendant that made half the guests look between our jewelry with raised eyebrows. The old Evelyn had believed grace could earn love. Grace had only made me easier to erase. A waiter passed with champagne. I took a glass and held it without drinking. My phone buzzed inside my clutch. A message from Mara Quinn, my college friend turned attorney. You asked me to review the engagement agreement again. I found something odd. Call me before you sign anything else. My breath stopped. I had forgotten this. In my previous life, I had asked Mara for a casual review of the engagement paperwork, more out of nervousness than suspicion. I never called her back. Adrian had told me involving outside lawyers made it look like I did not trust him. So I had trusted him. That mistake had cost me years. I slipped the phone back into my clutch and felt for the small built-in recorder I had used for interviews when I worked with my family foundation. Still there. My thumb found the button. Pressed once. A soft vibration confirmed it had started. Across the room, a microphone chimed. Adrian stepped onto the small stage beside the champagne tower. Celeste stood below him near the front row. One hand pressed to her chest as if the night were happening to her. Vivian caught my eye and gestured sharply. Go stand beside him. I did. Every step felt strange. My body remembered obedience. But my mind stood apart from it. I moved through the same scene that had once trapped me. Only now. Every detail glowed with warning. Adrian offered me his arm. I did not take it. A tiny line appeared between his brows. Is something wrong? He murmured. Not yet. He looked at me then, really looked. But the microphone was live. And the room had quieted. Thank you all for coming, Adrian said, voice smooth and controlled. Tonight marks not only an engagement, but the joining of two families with shared values, shared history, and shared vision. Shared? I almost laughed. He spoke beautifully. He always did when the subject was legacy, capital, duty, or public image. He could make a merger sound like a vow. He could make a contract sound like fate. His hand found my lower back, light pressure. A warning. In Evelyn, he continued, I have found someone patient, gracious, and deeply committed to family. Patient, gracious, committed. Not loved. Not cherished. Not chosen. Just useful. Applause lifted politely around us. Then Celeste swayed. It was subtle, a step backward. A soft gasp. A hand rising to her forehead. The woman beside her reached out. Celeste whispered something. Just loud enough to ripple through the front row. I'm sorry. I thought I could handle this. Adrian stopped mid-sentence. His hand left my back. There it was, the moment I had swallowed once. Celeste blinked up at him with wet eyes. Please don't stop. It's your night. Your night. Not our night. The guests turned toward her. Cameras shifted. Vivian's jaw tightened, not at Celeste, but at me, as if I had failed to prevent a storm I had not created. Adrian stepped down from the stage. Celeste, he said. The microphone caught his voice. Everyone heard the softness in it. A whisper ran across the ballroom. My father's face went still. Celeste shook her head. I'm fine. I just need a minute. Adrian turned to me, and I saw the sentence before he said it. Evelyn, he said quietly, take her to the private lounge. The room was silent enough that the request traveled. A few guests looked down. A few looked at me with pity. Others watched with open curiosity, already arranging the story in their minds. The fiancé asked to care for the old flame. The bride-to-be told to step aside at her own engagement. The woman with the ring asked to escort the woman with the matching pendant out of the room. In my last life, humiliation had burned through me, but fear had burned hotter. Fear of appearing jealous. Fear of embarrassing my father. Fear of losing Adrian before I had ever had him. So I had smiled and said, of course. Tonight. I smiled again. Adrian's shoulders relaxed just slightly. He thought he knew me. That was his first mistake. I lifted my champagne glass and placed it carefully on the edge of the champagne tower table. Then I touched my engagement ring. Adrian's eyes dropped to my hand. Evelyn, he said, lower now. I twisted the ring once. It had always been too cold. It slid off more easily than I expected. A sound moved through the crowd before anyone spoke. Shock had a texture. It brushed against skin. It lifted hair at the back of the neck. I set the ring beside the champagne glass. The diamond caught the chandelier light and threw it back without warmth. Adrian stared at it. What are you doing? I took the microphone from the stand. My hand did not shake. Since Adrian asked me to take care of Miss Monroe during my own engagement toast, I said, my voice carrying clearly across the ballroom, I think it is only fair that I clarify the seating arrangement of this relationship. A few people gasped. Vivian moved forward. Evelyn. I looked at her. Please don't interrupt me, Mrs. Vale. You taught me that public composure matters. Her mouth closed. I turned back to the room. Tonight was meant to announce my engagement to Adrian Vale. But it has become clear that I am not standing beside a man who wants a wife. I am standing beside a man who wants a shield. Adrian's face hardened. Enough. No. I said. That is the word I should have learned sooner. Celeste's eyes widened. Tears clung prettily to her lashes. But she was no longer swaying. Interesting. I glanced at her pendant. Miss Monroe arrived tonight wearing a pendant designed to resemble my engagement ring. Maybe that was coincidence. Maybe not. But Adrian recognized it. His mother recognized it. Half this room recognized it. And still, I was expected to pretend not to see. The whispers grew sharper. Celeste's lips parted. Evelyn. I never meant, you meant enough. I said. Adrian stepped closer. Do not embarrass yourself. There it was. Not do not hurt me. Not let's talk. Do not embarrass yourself. The same cold command he had used in my previous life when I found Celeste's bracelet in his car. When I saw the hotel invoice. When I asked why she had a key card to his private office. When I begged him to tell me whether I was his wife or his excuse. I looked at him and felt something inside me finally go quiet. I am not embarrassed. I said. I am released. My father stood near the front. Face pale with fury or confusion. I could not tell which. I continued before anyone could stop me. The engagement between Evelyn Hart and Adrian Vale is hereby called off. I will not proceed with wedding planning, marital asset agreements, foundation access transfers, or any private family authorizations connected to this union. Vivian inhaled sharply. That landed. Most guests heard heartbreak. Vivian heard money. Adrian heard it too. His gaze sharpened. You don't know what you're saying. I know exactly what I'm saying. I will have my attorney send formal notice in the morning. The word attorney changed the room. Business families understood lawyers better than tears. Celeste looked at Adrian, then at Vivian. For the first time. Uncertainty touched her face. Adrian reached for my arm. I stepped back. Do not touch me. The microphone carried that too. His hand froze midair. The cameras caught it. Good. I placed the microphone back on its stand, picked up my clutch, and turned away from the stage. Behind me, Vivian hissed. Thomas, control your daughter. My father's voice came tight. Evelyn, come here. I did not. In my old life, I had always gone where I was called. Tonight, I walked straight through the ballroom while guests parted for me. No one laughed. No one stopped me. Somewhere behind me, Celeste began to cry, for real or for strategy. I no longer cared. At the exit, Adrian caught up. Evelyn. I kept walking. The hallway outside the ballroom was quieter, lined with mirrored walls and white floral arrangements. My reflection moved beside me, pale but upright, ringless hand wrapped around my clutch. Adrian's steps followed. You made a scene, he said. I stopped near the elevator. No. You made one. I stopped performing in it. His jaw flexed. Celeste had a panic attack. She had timing. You're being cruel. I looked at him. In another life, those words would have gutted me. Adrian had known that. He used morality like a leash, always looped around my throat. Was I cruel when I organized your mother's hospital gala because Celeste forgot to confirm the donor list? I asked. Was I cruel when I rewrote your speech after she leaked the wrong draft to a reporter? Was I cruel when I smiled through every dinner where you left me alone to comfort her? His eyes flickered, not guilt, annoyance at being reminded. Those things are not the same. No, they're worse. Because I was your fiancé, and you made me your cleanup crew. The elevator doors opened. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. This engagement is bigger than your feelings. I laughed once. It sounded unfamiliar. So were my feelings. You just never considered them part of the agreement. He stared at me. You'll regret this tomorrow. No. I said, stepping into the elevator. Tomorrow is when I make it legal. The doors began to close. His hand shot out to stop them. For a second, we stood with brushed steel between us. Evelyn, he said, quieter now. Don't do this over one misunderstanding. One. I reached into my clutch, took out my phone, and held up the screen. The recorder was still running. His eyes dropped to it. The first true emotion crossed his face, fear. Small, controlled, but real. Good night, Adrian. The doors closed. Only when I reached the lobby did my knees almost give. I gripped the wall near a marble column and breathed through the trembling. Strength did not mean pain vanished. It meant pain no longer got to drive. Outside, the night air hit my face. My driver hurried forward. Miss Hart, take me home. Of course. As the car pulled away from the hotel, my phone lit again. Mara. I answered. Evelyn. She said. I was about to leave another message. Please tell me you haven't signed the revised prenup. I haven't. A pause. Good. Don't. I looked down at my bare finger. Tell me everything. The version Vale's counsel sent over is not standard. It creates a pathway for shared management over certain Hart Family Foundation assets after the wedding. It's dressed up as philanthropic partnership language. But Evelyn, it gives them influence. Not ownership at first, but access, voting pressure, advisory control. If you sign the follow-up authorization after marriage, they can leverage your name and your family's donor network. My skin went cold. In my previous life, I had signed it. Adrian had told me it was symbolic, a gesture of trust. I closed my eyes. What else? There is also a clause tied to termination. If the engagement ends due to misconduct by either party, reputational damages can be claimed. But misconduct has to be documented. I opened my eyes. The city light streaked across the window. How documented? Written records. Recordings where legal. Witness statements. Public conduct. Anything showing pressure. Humiliation. Conflict of interest. Emotional coercion. Or third-party interference. I almost smiled. That won't be a problem. Mara went quiet. What happened? I called off the engagement. Another pause. Then softly. Are you safe? The question entered me deeper than I expected. Not are you sure? Not what about the alliance? Are you safe? I swallowed. I'm on my way home. Send me everything, messages, emails, agreement drafts, recordings, anything involving Celeste Monroe. Do not respond to Adrian tonight. Do not respond to his mother. And Evelyn, yes. Take screenshots before anyone deletes anything. I looked at my phone. At the dozens of unread messages already appearing. Adrian, we need to talk. Vivian Vale. This behavior is unacceptable. Father, come home immediately. Celeste Monroe. I'm sorry if I upset you. I never wanted to come between you and Adrian. I took screenshots, all of them. At home. The Hart mansion was still lit. My father stood in the foyer in his tuxedo, waiting as if I were 17 and had missed curfew. What the hell was that? He demanded. I handed my coat to the housekeeper. An ending. Do you understand what you did tonight? Yes. You humiliated the Vale family. No. I returned their behavior to them in public. His face reddened. This alliance took 2 years to negotiate. And my life was the collateral. His expression changed just slightly. Don't be dramatic. There it was again, the language of people who benefited from your silence. I looked past him to the staircase. I'm tired. You are not walking away from this conversation. I am. Evelyn. I stopped at the first stair and turned. I called off my engagement tonight. Tomorrow morning, I'm meeting my lawyer. If you want to discuss family business, schedule it with her. He stared at me as if he did not recognize me. Maybe he never had. In my room, the past waited on my desk, a thick cream envelope embossed with the Vale crest. The revised prenuptial agreement. In my previous life, I had signed it 2 days after the engagement party while Adrian sat across from me scrolling through his phone. I had joked that he seemed more interested in emails than marriage. He had not looked up when he said, "You knew what this was when you agreed." I had laughed like it did not hurt. Now I opened the envelope and spread the pages across my desk. There were sticky tabs where they wanted my initials. So many places for a woman to disappear legally. Foundation advisory access. Shared philanthropic decision-making. Mutual reputational protection. Family partnership continuity. A private clause requiring disputes to remain confidential unless both parties agreed. Of course. They had not wanted a daughter-in-law. They had wanted a locked door. My phone buzzed again, Adrian this time. Not a message. A call. I watched his name glow until it disappeared. Then another call. Then another. On the fourth, he left a voicemail. I played it on speaker and recorded it on another device. His voice filled my bedroom. Controlled but edged. Evelyn, tonight went too far. I'm willing to overlook it if you calm down and meet me tomorrow. But if you involve lawyers or damage my family's reputation, you'll force me to respond formally. Think carefully. You are emotional right now. Don't destroy both families over jealousy. I saved it. Then I sent every file to Mara, the ballroom recording, the messages, the voicemail, photos of the agreement, screenshots of Celeste's text. Then I took the engagement ring from my clutch. I had collected it from the table before leaving, not because I wanted it, but because heirlooms had legal value and symbolic weight. I placed it in a small velvet box on top of the prenup. For the first time since waking in this life, I let myself cry, not because I wanted Adrian back, but because I had almost lost myself again. At dawn, I stood by my window with coffee gone cold in my hand. The city looked clean from this height, all glass and pale morning. My phone buzzed. Mara, I reviewed everything. You need to come in. There's more. I looked down at the prenup. One clause circled in red. If marriage proceeded, any unilateral withdrawal from the family partnership framework could trigger a damages review. My stomach tightened. In my last life, this clause had been the cage. In this life, the door was still open, but only if I moved before they closed it. I dressed in a navy suit, tied my hair back, and put the ring box in my bag. As I left my room, my father stood in the hallway. His anger had cooled into something more dangerous. Vale's counsel called. He said, "They're willing to treat last night as a misunderstanding if you issue a private apology." I looked at him. "And what do you want?" "I want you to think beyond yourself." I nodded slowly. That sentence had raised me. Think beyond yourself translated to sacrifice quietly. Translated to smile when powerful men make plans with your name. Translated to call it duty when it is actually erasure. I did think beyond myself. I said, "That's why I'm stopping this before heart assets become Vale leverage." For the first time, uncertainty crossed his face. "What are you talking about?" "Ask your lawyers why the revised prenup gives them foundation access after marriage." His eyes narrowed. He had not known. Good. That meant Vivian Vale had tried to get through me because I was supposed to be easier. I walked past him. Behind me, my father said, "Evelyn." I stopped. His voice was lower now. "Do not sign anything." I almost smiled. I wasn't planning to. Outside, my car waited. Inside my bag, the ring box felt heavier than it should have. My phone lit with one new message from Adrian. "We'll talk at my mother's dinner tonight. You owe everyone an apology." I deleted nothing. I forwarded it to Mara. Then I typed one reply. "No, Adrian. You will talk to my lawyer." I pressed send. For 3 years in another life, I had waited for him to choose me. Now, finally, I chose myself. And somewhere across the city, Adrian Vale was about to learn that the quiet woman he had taken for granted had been holding up more of his world than he knew. Mara Quinn's office looked nothing like the law firms Adrian preferred. His lawyers worked out of glass towers with cold marble lobbies and receptionists trained to smile without warmth. Mara's office sat on the 5th floor of a restored brick building downtown, above a coffee shop and across from a courthouse where real people entered with real problems instead of polished family scandals. Her conference room had a scratched oak table, shelves full of marked-up legal books, and one window that stuck when opened. I trusted it more than any room Vale money had ever built. Mara met me at the door with her sleeves rolled up and her red hair clipped messily behind her head. She looked at my bare left hand first, then at my face. "You slept?" "No." "Good. Then you're angry enough to listen." I almost laughed. That sounds like legal advice. It's emotional survival advice. Sit down. I sat. She spread the engagement agreement, prenup draft, and several printed emails across the table. My recorder sat beside them, connected to her laptop. For 2 hours, she walked me through the architecture of my own cage. Not one clause screamed danger. That was the point. Each paragraph looked reasonable alone. Together, they created a system where my marriage to Adrian would have opened doors into the Heart Foundation, Heart family donor circles, and several private investment channels my father had spent decades protecting. They don't get direct ownership, Mara said, tapping one page. That would have been too obvious. They get advisory standing, shared initiative authority, joint public commitments. Once announced, withdrawal becomes reputationally costly, meaning if I refused later, I would look unstable. Exactly. And if you were already married, they could frame your resistance as a marital dispute, not a business concern. I stared at the paper. In my last life, I had sat at Adrian's dining table while Vivian poured tea and told me how proud she was to finally have a daughter who understood legacy. I had signed every tab. I had thought acceptance felt warm. It had been a furnace. What happens now? I asked. Now we send notice terminating the engagement before any additional documents are executed. We preserve the record of last night. We instruct Vale Council not to contact you directly. We also notify your family office that no authorization, guarantee, donor letter, or foundation partnership may proceed using your name without your written approval. I nodded. Mara studied me. There's something else. Of course there is. She turned her laptop toward me. An email chain appeared on screen. Do you recognize this address? I leaned closer. Celeste Monroe at monroearchive.org. My throat tightened. Celeste runs a nonprofit arts archive. She runs a shell with nice branding, Mara said. Last year, she requested sponsorship from 3 Heart Foundation partners. 2 of those requests referenced her connection to Adrian. 1 referenced you. Me. Mara clicked a PDF. It opened. Dear Mr. Levin, as Evelyn Hart and Adrian Vale prepare to unite their families, we are excited to explore aligned cultural initiatives that reflect the values of both households. I read the sentence twice. My name used without my permission. In my previous life, I remembered Celeste thanking me at a luncheon for being so supportive of women in the arts. I had not known what she meant. Adrian had brushed it off when I asked. She was already using the engagement. I said, yes. And if the marriage proceeded, her access would likely grow. Did Adrian know? Mara leaned back. That's what we need to find out. But based on the timing, someone in the Vale orbit gave her confidence. I thought of the pendant, the hand on Adrian's sleeve, the way Vivian had looked at me as if Celeste's pain were my responsibility. Send the notices, I said. Mara's expression softened. Once we do this, they will push back. I know. They'll call you unstable, jealous, ungrateful. They may pressure your father. They already have. Then we move cleanly. No emotional emails. No late-night calls. No private meetings without counsel. I almost smiled. You mean I can't scream into the void? You can scream here. My hourly rate includes controlled rage. For the first time in this life. I laughed. It broke something open in my chest. Not joy yet, but air. By noon, formal notices had gone out. By 1 o'clock, Adrian called 9 times. By 2 o'clock, Vivian Vale sent a message so polished it could cut glass. Evelyn, I understand young women sometimes experience insecurity before marriage. However, last night's conduct created unnecessary embarrassment. Our families expect discretion. Join us for dinner tonight so we may resolve this privately. I forwarded it to Mara. Then I replied once. All communication regarding the engagement termination should be directed to my attorney. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. No message came. That silence pleased me more than it should have. At 4 o'clock, my father requested that I come to his study. The Hart mansion had many rooms designed to impress strangers. But my father's study was the only one that looked lived in. Dark wood shelves, leather chairs, old sailing photographs, a chessboard he never finished. He stood behind his desk with the revised prenup in his hand. His lawyer, Mr. Bell, sat near the window. That surprised me. I had Bell review the clauses you mentioned, my father said. His mouth tightened. Vale's counsel was ambitious. That was as close as Thomas Hart came to admitting he had missed something. Mr. Bell cleared his throat. Miss Hart was correct not to sign. My father looked at me then, not like a daughter who had made a scene, but like a person who had seen a trap before he did. It should have felt satisfying. Instead, it made me sad. Did you know they were pushing foundation access through me? I asked. No. Would you have stopped it if I had already signed? His jaw flexed. That was answer enough. He would have tried. But after marriage, after announcements, after public commitments, after all the respectable language wrapped around the damage, he would have asked me to compromise. Because families like ours did not bleed in public. They hemorrhaged behind closed doors and called it strategy. I am terminating the engagement, I said. Not pausing it. Not renegotiating. Terminating. My father looked at Bell. Bell looked at the papers. The termination clause allows it, he said, given documented third-party interference and public conduct. Vale would have difficulty claiming damages without inviting discovery. Discovery, a beautiful word. It meant secrets could be forced into daylight. My father exhaled. Vivian will not take this well. I'm not doing it for Vivian. Adrian may apologize. I looked at him. Would that change anything? In my previous life, I had lived on almost apologies. Adrian was skilled at them. He could stand near remorse without entering it. He could say I regret how that looked and make you feel childish for wanting I regret what I did. No. I said. It wouldn't. My father studied me for a long moment. You loved him. That sentence landed softly and hurt anyway. I loved who I tried to become for him. Neither man spoke. I turned to leave. At the door, my father said, there is a Vale dinner tonight. I know. You don't have to go. I looked back. I do. His brows drew together. Why? Because I spent years letting them speak for me in rooms where I was present. I want to hear what they say when I answer. Mara hated the idea. Absolutely not, she said over the phone. Private family dinner with people who are already trying to pressure you. No. It won't be private. What does that mean? I'm bringing you. Silence. Then a sigh. I knew I liked you better sleep deprived. The Vale mansion sat behind iron gates in the old part of the city, where houses did not display wealth loudly because everyone already knew. Its windows glowed warm against the evening, but I knew better than to mistake light for welcome. Mara arrived in a black suit and low heels, carrying a slim briefcase. You understand my role tonight. Legal witness and social grenade. Perfect. The butler's face flickered when he saw her with me. Miss Hart, he said. Mrs. Vale is expecting family. Ms. Quinn is my attorney. That word traveled ahead of us like smoke. By the time we entered the dining room, everyone was standing. Vivian Vale at the head of the table in pearls. Adrian beside the fireplace, still in his work suit, tie loosened. His younger cousin. 2 board advisors. My father. And 1 empty chair meant for me. Celeste sat in the chair beside Adrian's. Of course. She wore pale blue tonight, soft and wounded. No pendant. Smart. Vivian's eyes moved from Mara to me. This is unnecessary. So was inviting Ms. Monroe to a family dinner about my engagement. I said. Celeste lowered her eyes. I offered not to come. No. I said. You offered to appear reluctant. There's a difference. Adrian stepped forward. Enough. Celeste is here because last night you accused her publicly. She deserves an apology. I looked at him. There it was again, the old rhythm. Celeste trembled. Adrian defended. Vivian judged. I softened. Everyone called it peace. I took my seat. Mara sat beside me without waiting for permission. I will not apologize. I said. Vivian's smile thinned. Then why are you here? To make sure everyone understands that the engagement is over. Adrian laughed once under his breath. It was not amusement. It was disbelief. Evelyn, stop saying that as if it's a decision you can make alone. Mara opened her briefcase. The sound of the clasp seemed to irritate him. Actually, Mara said, under Section 4 of the engagement agreement, Either party may terminate prior to execution of the marriage license, provided written notice is served. Notice was served today at 11:46 a.m. Vivian looked at Mara as if she were furniture speaking out of turn. This is a family matter. No, Mara said. It became a legal matter when your council drafted a prenup expanding access to heart-affiliated foundation initiatives. One of the board advisors shifted. Adrian's eyes cut to his mother. He had not known either. Interesting. Vivian recovered quickly. Standard partnership language. Then you won't mind discussing it in writing, Mara said. I could have kissed her. Celeste spoke softly. I never wanted any of this. Adrian, maybe I should leave. Adrian turned toward her automatically. The movement was small. It was enough. I stood. Everyone looked at me. That, I said, is exactly why this engagement is over. Adrian's face hardened. Because I'm compassionate. Because your compassion has always required my disappearance. Celeste flinched. I turned to her. You don't need to leave. You should stay. I want witnesses. Vivian's voice chilled. Witnesses to what? I took out my phone and opened the screenshots Mara had organized. Miss Monroe has used my name in sponsorship requests. She has referenced my engagement to Adrian to approach Heart Foundation partners. I did not authorize that. Celeste went pale. Adrian looked at her. What is she talking about? Celeste's mouth opened, then closed. I slid printed copies across the table, 3 requests, 2 donor follow-ups, 1 event proposal implying future Heartvale support. Vivian picked up a page. Her face did not change, but her fingers tightened. Adrian read over her shoulder. For once, Celeste had no tears ready. I was trying to build something meaningful. She whispered. I thought, since our families would be connected, our families were not connected. I said, Adrian and I were engaged. You were not marrying me. Adrian looked up. Evelyn, no. You don't get to soften this for her. Not tonight. His eyes flashed. She made a mistake. Then she can correct it publicly. Celeste stared at me. You want to ruin me? No. I want you to stop spending my reputation. The sentence landed harder than I expected. Even my father looked at me. Vivian set the paper down. This can be managed. Not by me. I said. Dinner was never served. No one seemed to notice. Adrian followed me into the front hall when I left. Mara walked ahead, giving us enough space to speak, but not enough for him to rewrite it later. Evelyn, he said. Wait. I stopped beneath a portrait of some Vale ancestor who looked as cold as the house. What? His expression was controlled, but something underneath had shifted. I didn't know Celeste used your name. No. You didn't ask. That isn't fair. Fair was never your concern when I was the one paying the cost. He took a breath. You embarrassed her tonight. I looked at him for a long moment. Adrian, she committed reputational fraud using my name, and your first instinct is still to measure her embarrassment. His jaw tightened. I've known her for years. And you've known me as a function. His eyes narrowed. What does that mean? It means you knew what I could do for you. You never bothered to know what it cost me. For once. He had no immediate answer. I stepped toward the door. He said, quieter. You were never this harsh before. I turned back. No. I was this hurt. You preferred it quiet. Outside, Mara waited by the car. I looked once at the mansion, at the warm windows and cold people behind them. My phone buzzed before I reached the gate. A message from the bridal salon. Miss Hart, confirming your final fitting tomorrow at 10 a.m. Mr. Vale's guest list addition has been noted. Ms. Monroe requested access to the appointment as approved by Mr. Vale's office. I stopped walking. Mara read my face. What now? I showed her the phone. Her eyes sharpened. He added Celeste to your wedding dress fitting. His office did. Are you going? I stared at the message. In my previous life, Celeste had come to the fitting. She had cried when she saw me in the dress. Adrian had comforted her in the hallway. Vivian had told me to be mature. The seamstress had stood silently with pins in her mouth while I pretended not to hear Celeste say, it's just hard seeing the life I almost had. The life she almost had. My life. My dress. My humiliation. I looked at Mara. Yes. I said. I'm going. The bridal salon occupied the top floor of a quiet building near the park. Cream carpets, mirrored walls, soft music, private suites named after flowers. I had chosen it in my last life because Vivian said it was discreet. Discreet meant expensive silence. This time, Mara waited in the lobby while I went upstairs alone. Not because I trusted them, but because I wanted the scene clean. The consultant, Anna, greeted me too brightly. Miss Hart, good morning. We have your gown ready. Has anyone else arrived? Her smile flickered. Ms. Monroe is in the viewing suite. Of course she was. I walked in. Celeste stood before the mirrors in my wedding dress. For 1 second, the old pain rose so violently that my vision blurred. The gown was ivory silk with a structured bodice and long sleeves. Elegant, restrained, exactly the kind of dress Vivian said would make me look timeless. It had been designed for my measurements, my shoulders, my waist, my wedding. Celeste held the skirt lightly, turning as if she had been caught in a dream. When she saw me, she gasped. Evelyn, I'm so sorry. Anna said I could look. And then she touched the dress. I didn't mean to upset you. Anna stood frozen near the door. I looked at her. Who authorized this? She swallowed. Mr. Vale's assistant confirmed Ms. Monroe was permitted to attend the appointment. Attend, I said, not wear my gown. Celeste stepped down from the platform. I know this looks bad. It looks accurate. She flinched. I took out my phone and photographed her in the mirror. Her face changed instantly. Don't. Why not? You said it was innocent. Evelyn, please. I turned to Anna. Is there surveillance in this room? No cameras in the private fitting suite, she said quickly. Convenient. There are cameras in the hall. She added. Good. Preserve the footage of Ms. Monroe entering before my appointment. My attorney will request it. Celeste's voice sharpened. You're really going to make this ugly over a dress? I looked at her standing in my gown. No. Celeste. You made it ugly. I'm making it documented. Her tears vanished. For the first time, the softness slipped. You think canceling the engagement makes you powerful, she said. Adrian will never love a woman like you. You're a contract. A family-approved solution. I was the person he chose before duty ruined everything. There she was. Not fragile. Not overwhelmed. Hungry. I felt strangely calm. Then you should be relieved. I said. I've removed duty from his path. Her mouth tightened. I didn't steal him. No. You borrowed his weakness and called it love. The slap came fast, not from her hand, but from the room itself going silent after my words. Anna stared at the floor. Celeste stood in my wedding dress, breathing hard. I smiled slightly. Thank you. Her eyes narrowed. For what? For finally being honest. I turned to Anna. Cancel the gown. Anna blinked. Miss Hart, the wedding is off. Cancel all orders tied to the Vale Hart wedding. Send the invoice for completed work to my office. Not Vale's. Celeste's face went blank. You can't cancel it, she said. I looked back at her. It was my dress. Then I walked out. In the lobby, Mara looked up. Well, she wore it. Mara closed her eyes. Of course she did. And she said Adrian would never love a woman like me. Recorded. I held up my phone, audio only, and hallway footage pending. Mara smiled slowly. Remind me never to underestimate a clutch recorder. By evening, Adrian knew. He called from a blocked number. I answered because Mara sat beside me in her office and nodded. The call was recorded, with consent stated at the beginning by Mara in a voice so professional it could freeze boiling water. Adrian hated that. Evelyn, he said, this has gone beyond reasonable. Celeste wore my wedding dress. She made a mistake. You say that often. Because you keep escalating things that could be handled privately. Privacy is where you asked me to disappear. He exhaled sharply. What do you want? The question surprised me, not because he asked, but because for once, I had an answer that did not include him. I want formal termination of the engagement. Written confirmation that no Vale representative will use my name, likeness, family affiliation, or foundation connection. Written correction from Celeste to every donor she contacted. reimbursement for wedding expenses incurred under false assumptions, and no further personal contact from you. Silence. Then a laugh, cold, incredulous. You can't be serious. I am. You're throwing away a marriage over pride. No. I said. I'm refusing to enter one without respect. His voice dropped. You know what people will say. Yes. They'll say what they always say when a woman stops being useful. Evelyn. Goodbye. Adrian. I ended the call. For a few seconds. The room was quiet. Mara looked at me. How do you feel? I considered lying. Then I told the truth. Like I'm cutting off a hand that kept reaching for a knife. She nodded. That sounds about right. The next morning, Vail Holdings stock dipped 2% after anonymous business blogs reported uncertainty around the Hart-Vail alliance. By noon, Vivian Vail called my father. By 3 o'clock, Adrian stopped calling me and sent flowers instead, white roses. The same flowers from the engagement ballroom. The card read, "Let's not destroy something important because of pain." I stared at it for a long time. Then I took a photo for the record and asked the housekeeper to donate the flowers to the hospital chapel. Pain had built the old Evelyn, but Pain would not be allowed to negotiate for me anymore. That night, my father knocked on my study door. I spoke with Adrian. He said, I did not look up from the donor list I was reviewing. My condolences. He says he wants to resolve this. He means contain it. My father sat across from me. For once. He looked tired. Evelyn, I need to ask you something. I waited. Did I push you into this engagement? In my last life, I would have protected him from the answer. Tonight, I did not. Yes. He closed his eyes. I expected defense, explanation, legacy, duty. Instead, he said, I thought I was securing your future. I looked at him then. You were securing an alliance. Those are not always the same thing. He nodded once, as if the words cost him. What do you need from me? It was such a simple question. It almost undid me. Do not sign anything with Vail. Do not speak for me. Do not ask me to reconsider because their discomfort becomes inconvenient. He absorbed that. Then he said, all right. I believed him only halfway. But halfway was more than I had in my previous life. After he left, my phone buzzed with an email alert. Unknown sender. Subject. You should know what she asked for. Attached were forwarded messages between Celeste and someone in Adrian's office. My pulse slowed as I opened them. Celeste had requested access to donor lists, event invitations, bridal appointments, internal schedule details. And one message made my blood turn cold. If Evelyn signs after the wedding, will the Foundation advisory language cover cultural preservation grants too? Adrian said not to worry. But Vivian told me timing matters. Adrian said not to worry. There it was. Maybe he had not known everything, but he had known enough. I forwarded the email to Mara. Then I sat alone in my study, watching the screen glow. In my last life, I had begged Adrian to explain why Celeste always seemed to have access to my life before I did. He had said, you're imagining enemies because you're insecure. Now I had the enemy in writing. And the next event on the calendar was the Meridian charity auction, where Celeste had planned to stand beside Adrian as if she were the wounded woman wronged by a jealous fiancé. I opened the auction invitation. My name was still listed as honorary co-chair beside Adrian. Not for long. The Meridian charity auction was where wealthy people came to purchase forgiveness in public. I knew because I had helped organize it for 3 years. I had chosen the children's literacy beneficiary in my previous life. I had negotiated the matching donation structure. I had convinced 3 reluctant sponsors to stay after Adrian missed 2 planning calls because Celeste was having what he called a difficult week. At the event, Adrian had stood on stage and accepted praise for his commitment to community work. I had clapped from the front row. That memory no longer hurt. It clarified. The auction took place inside the glass atrium of the Bellwether Museum, all white stone, suspended lights, and enormous banners printed with donor names. In my last life, Hart and Vail had appeared together at the top. This year, after 1 call from Mara and 2 from my family office, the banner had been reprinted. Hart Foundation appeared alone. Vail Holdings appeared under corporate sponsors. Adrian noticed as soon as he entered. I watched from near the registration desk as his eyes lifted to the banner, then moved across the room until he found me. He wore a dark suit and the expression of a man who had expected the furniture to remain where he left it. Celeste stood beside him in blush silk, no pendant, no tears yet. Vivian arrived a few steps behind, smiling for photographers. The room noticed the distance between us immediately. Good. Let them. For years, I had feared being discussed. Now I understood gossip was only dangerous when truth arrived late. Evelyn, said Daniel Price, the museum director, approaching with visible relief. Thank you for coming early. We had a minor issue with the silent auction software, but your team handled it. My team is good. He lowered his voice. I also received your note about donor representation. Everything has been corrected. Thank you. His eyes flicked toward Adrian. Will there be any difficulty tonight? I looked across the room. Adrian was speaking to a senator. Celeste was scanning for cameras. Only if someone creates it. Daniel winced. Then I'll keep security informed. Discreetly. Of course. I had learned something after canceling my engagement. Boundaries required logistics. It was not enough to say no. Doors had to be locked. Emails had to be corrected. Staff had to know who had access and who did not. The old Evelyn had trusted manners to protect her. The new Evelyn trusted written instructions. At 7 o'clock, the auction began. I sat at the heart table with my father, Mara, and 2 foundation trustees. Adrian sat 2 tables away with Vivian and several Vale executives. Celeste sat beside him, of course, angled slightly toward the cameras. The first half passed without incident. Then Celeste took the stage. That had not been on the final program. Daniel looked at me from the side of the room, horrified. I already knew. Celeste specialized in appearing where she had not been invited. Ladies and gentlemen, she said, holding the microphone with both hands, I apologize for this unexpected moment, but as someone who believes deeply in art, memory, and healing, I wanted to say a few words. Mara leaned toward me. Do you want me to stop this? Not yet. Celeste's voice trembled perfectly. Many of you know there has been painful speculation recently involving people I care about. I never wanted to be part of anyone's misunderstanding. I never wanted to be seen as a threat to another woman. The room changed. Heads turned. Adrian sat very still. Vivian's expression sharpened, but she did not move. Celeste continued, gaining confidence. I have lost things too. Dreams. Friendships. A future I once believed in. But tonight is not about bitterness. It is about grace. Grace. There it was again, the word used to domesticate women in pain. My father shifted beside me. Evelyn. I raised one hand slightly. Wait. Celeste placed her hand over her heart. So I hope we can all remember that love and duty are complicated. Sometimes people are hurt not because anyone meant harm, but because expectations become too heavy. A few sympathetic murmurs moved through the room. She was good. She had turned my cancelled engagement into her tragedy without naming me once. Then she made her mistake. And I hope the Heart Foundation, which has always stood for compassion, will continue supporting women's cultural voices, including those of us who have been unfairly judged. Mara whispered. There. I stood. Not fast. Not dramatically. Just enough that the room saw me before I spoke. Daniel. I said. May I? The museum director looked like a man watching lightning choose a tree. He nodded. I walked to the stage. Celeste's smile held, but her knuckles tightened around the microphone. Thank you, Miss Monroe. I said, taking the second microphone from Daniel. That was a moving statement. Her eyes flickered. I turned to the audience. Since the Heart Foundation was mentioned, I should clarify our position. Adrian's chair scraped softly. I did not look at him. The Heart Foundation supports women's voices. We support artists, educators, archivists, and community leaders. We do not support individuals using another woman's name, engagement, family affiliation, or donor network without consent. The atrium went silent. Celeste's face drained. I continued. In light of recent unauthorized sponsorship requests made using my name, The foundation has established a new legal assistance fund for women facing coercive financial, reputational, or family pressure during engagements and marriages. Mara had helped me draft the announcement in one clean page. The old wedding budget had made it possible. Tonight, I said, I am redirecting the full amount previously allocated to my wedding floral installation, bridal luncheon, and private reception design into that fund. A ripple moved through the room. People understood numbers when emotions made them uncomfortable. $380,000 will launch the Heart Women's Legal Independence Fund. Applause began at the back, then spread. Celeste stood beside me, frozen. I looked at her once, not triumphantly. Clearly, you were right about one thing, I said. Tonight is about grace. But grace does not require a woman to fund her own erasure. The applause grew. I handed the microphone back to Daniel and walked off the stage. Adrian met me near the side corridor. His face was pale with anger. What are you doing? Speaking. You turned a charity event into a personal attack. No. Celeste tried to. I corrected the record. He stepped closer. You could have warned me. I stared at him. Why would I warn you about my own money? His expression flickered. My own money. Words I had not used enough. He lowered his voice. This is becoming damaging. To whom? To everyone. No. Adrian. Be precise. To you. He looked away first. That tiny emotion gave me more satisfaction than any raised voice could have. Behind him, Celeste hurried down from the stage area, eyes wet, lips trembling. She stopped when she saw me. Are you happy now? She whispered. No. I said. But I am accurate. Her face twisted. Adrian turned to her. Celeste. Not here. She looked at him with wounded disbelief. So now you care about the room. The words slipped out too sharply. Several people nearby heard. Adrian's jaw tightened. I almost pitied him, almost. He had spent years letting Celeste perform fragility. Now she had forgotten the audience. I walked away before either of them could pull me back into their scene. At the heart table, my father looked at me strangely. What? I asked. He shook his head. I have never seen you like that. I have never been like this. No. He said quietly. I think you have. We just benefited when you hit it. That was the closest my father had ever come to an apology. I accepted it with a nod. Not forgiveness, a receipt. The auction raised more than expected. By midnight, clips of my statement had appeared online. By morning, the story had changed. Not jealous fiancé ruins engagement. Not poor first love humiliated by family duty. The new headlines were sharper. Heart heiress redirects wedding budget to legal fund after broken engagement. Questions grow around Monroe Archive sponsorship requests. Vale Heart Alliance uncertain after public split. Adrian called at 9 o'clock. I did not answer. At 10 o'clock, he came to my apartment, not the Hart mansion. My apartment. I had bought it quietly 2 years earlier with money from my grandmother's trust. In my last life, I barely used it after marriage. Adrian preferred the Vale townhouse, where every chair seemed chosen by someone's dead ancestor and every room had ears. This apartment had pale wood floors, wide windows, and no memories of him. The doorman called up. Mr. Vale is here. He says it's urgent. Send him away. A pause. He says he won't leave. Then tell him the building has a trespass policy. Another pause. Yes, Miss Hart. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Adrian, I'm outside. We need to talk about what you did last night. I replied. No. Adrian. This cannot continue. Me. It already ended. Adrian. You think humiliating me makes you free? I stared at the message. Then typed. No. Refusing to manage your humiliation does. He did not respond. At noon, Vale Holdings held an emergency internal meeting. I knew because 3 people forwarded me the calendar invite within 20 minutes. The subject line. Donor Relations and Alliance Risk Review. Alliance Risk. That was what they called me now. Not Evelyn. Not Adrian's fiancé. Risk. I spent the afternoon with Mara reviewing the newest evidence from the anonymous email account. We traced several messages to an assistant in Adrian's office, but the language suggested direction from above. Could be Vivian. Mara said. Could be Adrian. Could be both. I tapped one printed line. Adrian said not to worry. I need to know what he knew. Then we request formal confirmation from Vale Council. He'll deny it. Maybe. But denial creates a record. A record, my new favorite kind of revenge. That evening, my father called from the family office. I need to tell you something before you hear it elsewhere, he said. My stomach tightened. What? Vale is claiming you acted unpredictably and may have jeopardized donor commitments. I laughed. My father did not. They're trying to frame me as unstable. Yes. Do you believe them? A pause. The old fear rose. Then he said, no. I closed my eyes. It should not have mattered so much. It did. But we need to be strategic. He added. Vivian is pushing board members to pressure me. Let her. Evelyn. No. Let her push. The more she tries to force private compliance, the more obvious the pattern becomes. My father was quiet. You sound like your grandmother, he said finally. That made me smile. My grandmother had been the only heart woman who never mistook politeness for surrender. Good, I said. The next day, Adrian appeared where I could not ignore him, Vale Holdings. I had gone there with Mara to retrieve personal items from the private office suite I had used during joint event planning. I had asked for everything to be boxed. Instead, we arrived to find Adrian waiting. The conference room overlooked the city from the 42nd floor. Glass walls. Black table. 12 chairs. No warmth. A cardboard box sat near the door. 3 years of my labor reduced to folders. Chargers. And a framed photo from an event where Adrian had smiled beside me like a man tolerating weather. Mara stiffened. Mr. Vale. All communication should go through counsel. I'm not here as counsel, he said. I'm here as Adrian. I looked at him. That's never been the part one could rely on. His eyes moved to me for the first time since the engagement party. He looked tired, not destroyed, not humbled, but disturbed. As if the floor plan of his life had changed overnight and he kept walking into walls. Give us 10 minutes, he said. No. His mouth tightened. Evelyn, no private conversations. No off-record explanations. No emotional containment meetings disguised as closure. Mara's lips twitched. Adrian glanced at her. Annoyed. Do you need your lawyer to speak for you now? I stepped closer. No. I need her to witness what men like you say when they think no one is recording. His eyes flashed. Then he lowered his voice. I did not tell Celeste to use your name. Did you know she was asking for access? A pause, too long. She mentioned wanting support for the archive. Did you tell her not to use me? She was excited. I didn't think, no. You didn't. He exhaled. I didn't think it would become this. It became this because you believed my consent was implied by my usefulness. That struck him, I saw it. Not enough to change him. Enough to wound his image of himself. He looked toward the window. I handled things poorly. I waited. The words hung there. Weak and unfinished. Poorly. I repeated. His jaw tightened. What do you want me to say? The truth. He turned back. Fine. I should have set clearer boundaries with Celeste. Clearer boundaries. So clean. So bloodless. I picked up the framed photo from the box and looked at it. In the picture, Adrian stood at a podium accepting an award for philanthropic leadership. I stood 3 feet behind him, hands folded, smiling. I had written that speech. I had secured that award. He had thanked his mother. I set the frame back. You didn't fail to set boundaries. You chose the ones that served you. Celeste got emotional access. Your mother got business access. My father got alliance access. You got stability. I got told to be gracious. His face changed. That is unfair. No. It is organized. Mara quietly placed a folder on the table. Adrian looked at it. What is that? A formal demand, she said. For written clarification regarding Ms. Monroe's unauthorized donor outreach, including any communications from your office. His face hardened again. And just like that, the almost apology vanished. You're making a mistake, he said. I picked up my box. No, Adrian. I already made it. I'm correcting it now. As I walked out, I heard him say my name, not loudly, not commandingly, just once. I did not turn. In the elevator, Mara said, "He's starting to understand." "No." I said. "He's starting to lose." The difference mattered. Understanding required empathy. Loss required only consequence. 3 days later, consequence arrived. A financial paper published a report questioning whether Vale Holdings had overstated the stability of its upcoming philanthropic and investor partnerships tied to the Heart Alliance. No laws had been broken, not yet. But investor confidence disliked ambiguity. And Vale had built too many projections around a marriage that no longer existed. Adrian's internal problem became external. His board called a meeting. I was not invited. Then I was, not by Adrian, but an independent director who had once served with my grandmother. The message was brief. "Ms. Hart, given recent references to your family foundation in Vale planning documents, the board would appreciate your clarification at Friday's governance review." Mara read it and smiled. "That is not an invitation," she said. "That is a door. Should I walk through?" "Only if you're ready for everyone to stop pretending this is romantic drama." I looked at the printed emails. The prenup. The donor requests. The recording transcripts. The cancelled dress invoice. The engagement party footage already circulating in private circles. "I'm ready." That night, Adrian finally sent a message that did not sound like a command. "Please don't attend the board review. Let me fix this first." I stared at it for a long time. There it was, not "I hurt you." Not "you deserved better." Not "I should have protected you." "Let me fix this because the damage had reached him." I typed back one sentence. "You had years to fix how you treated me." Then I blocked his number. Not forever. Just long enough to enjoy the silence. Vale Holdings had built its headquarters to intimidate. The lobby ceiling rose 5 stories high. A steel sculpture twisted upward like a blade. Security guards wore earpieces and expressions designed to remind visitors they were being assessed. On the far wall, the Vale name shone in brushed metal letters large enough to be seen from the street. In my previous life, I had entered this building as Adrian's fiancée. People had smiled at me with careful respect, not because they respected me, but because they respected what they thought I represented. Access, stability, hard money, social permission. This time, I entered with Mara beside me and no ring on my finger. The receptionist looked up, startled. "Miss Hart, Mr. Vale is expecting. I'm here for the governance review." "Yes, of course. Conference level 51. Her hands moved too quickly over the keyboard. Nervous people were useful. They showed where power had shifted. In the elevator, Mara handed me a slim folder. "Final order," she said. "You start with the termination notice. Then the donor misuse. Then the prenup language. Save the recording excerpts unless they challenge your credibility. And if they call this personal, then you say personal conduct created corporate exposure." I breathed slowly. My reflection in the elevator doors looked composed. Inside, my heart hammered. Courage did not feel like confidence. It felt like fear with a spine. The boardroom was already full when we entered. Adrian stood near the head of the table, speaking quietly with Vivian. He stopped when he saw me. His face changed so quickly most people would have missed it. Relief first, then dread. That hurt more than anger. Some part of him still believed my presence meant I could be persuaded. The independent director who had invited me, Helen Ward, rose from her chair. "Miss Hart, thank you for coming. Thank you for inviting me." Vivian's smile was flawless. "Evelyn, this could have been handled between families." I looked at the 20 people seated around the table. That was what created the problem. A few eyes moved toward Vivian. Adrian pulled out a chair. "Sit." "Not please." I remained standing. Mara sat. I placed my folder on the table and opened it. "I'll be brief." Vivian gave a soft laugh. "That would be appreciated." I looked at her. "Mrs. Vale, you have spent weeks describing my decisions as emotional. Let's discuss documents instead." The room stilled. I began with the termination notice, date, time, delivery confirmation. Then the engagement agreement clause allowing unilateral termination before marriage. Then documented public conduct at the engagement party. No adjectives. No tears. Just facts. Adrian watched me with an expression I could not read. When I moved to Celeste's donor outreach, Vivian interrupted. Miss Monroe is not employed by Vale Holdings. No. I said. But she used Mr. Vale's office access, schedule information, and implied Heart Vale affiliation while communicating with donors. That creates questions. Helen Ward leaned forward. Do you have documentation? Mara distributed copies. Paper moved around the room. The sound was soft and devastating. Adrian looked at the emails. His face hardened at one line. If Evelyn signs after the wedding, will the Foundation advisory language cover cultural preservation grants too? He looked at Vivian. She did not look back. So she had known more than he had. Not that it absolved him. A man who looked away from a knife because someone else held it was still responsible when it cut. One board member cleared his throat. Mr. Vale, did your office authorize Miss Monroe's access to donor-related information? Adrian's jaw tightened. Not formally. Helen Ward's brows rose. That is not a denial. He looked at me. I gave him nothing. Vivian stepped in. This is being inflated. Celeste is a family friend who misunderstood boundaries during a sensitive time. Boundaries. I said. A word your family discovers only after crossing them. A few faces changed. Too sharp. Maybe. But not untrue. Mara touched the edge of her pen once. Steady. I continued. The larger issue is the revised prenuptial agreement. Drafted by Vale Council. Vivian's expression cooled. That agreement was never executed, because I refused to sign it. Helen Ward turned a page. What provision concerns you? Foundation advisory access disguised as marital philanthropic partnership language. If signed after marriage, it would have created public expectations of shared Heart Vale initiatives. Withdrawal would have exposed my family to reputational pressure. The CFO, a narrow-faced man with silver glasses, frowned. Was this access referenced in any forward-looking corporate planning? No one answered. That answer was loud. Helen looked at Adrian. Mr. Vale. Adrian's hand rested flat on the table. We included potential heart-aligned philanthropic partnerships in certain strategic materials, based on an unsigned marital agreement. Helen asked. His silence did more damage than a confession. Vivian said. The marriage was expected to proceed. I looked at her. By whom? Her gaze snapped to mine. By everyone reasonable. No. I said. By everyone who assumed I would obey. The room went very still. Adrian said my name softly. Evelyn. I turned to him, not as a fiancée, not as a woman begging to be seen, but as the person he should have never underestimated. Did you read the agreement? His face tightened. Of course. Did you read the clauses giving your family influence over my foundation access? A pause. I trusted counsel. Did you read the donor projections using my name? Another pause. I reviewed summaries. Did you ask me before allowing Celeste into my bridal appointment? His eyes flickered. That was handled by my assistant. Did you ask me before letting her believe my future signature would benefit her archive? Evelyn, did you ever ask me what I wanted? Silence. There it was, the entire marriage reduced to one unanswered question. Vivian's voice cut in. This is melodrama. I opened the final section of my folder. Then you won't mind the recording. Mara connected her laptop to the boardroom screen. Adrian's face changed. The first clip was from the engagement party. His voice filled the room. Evelyn, take her to the private lounge. Then mine. Since Adrian asked me to take care of Ms. Monroe during my own engagement toast. The recording stopped. The room was silent. The second clip was his voicemail. I'm willing to overlook it if you calm down. You are emotional right now. Don't destroy both families over jealousy. Helen Ward's expression hardened. The third clip was from the bridal salon hallway. Celeste's voice. Clear enough. Adrian will never love a woman like you. You're a contract. A family-approved solution. Then my voice. Then you should be relieved. I've removed duty from his path. The clip ended. No one spoke. I looked at Adrian. He looked as if the recording had struck him physically. Maybe he had never heard his life without the filter of his own justification. Maybe he had never understood how ugly his silence sounded when placed beside Celeste's certainty. Vivian recovered first. Private emotional conversations have no place in a governance review. Helen Ward turned to her. They do when corporate projections were built around the woman being pressured in those conversations. The room shifted. There was the reversal, not dramatic, not explosive, just power quietly changing seats. The CFO removed his glasses. We will need to review all materials referencing heart partnerships. Another director said. And Ms. Monroe's access to Vale's staff. Vivian's face went cold. This is excessive. Helen ignored her. Ms. Hart, what outcome are you seeking? I closed my folder. Correction. Confirmation. Distance. Specify. Written acknowledgement that I terminated the engagement within my rights. Written confirmation that neither Vale Holdings nor associated individuals will use my name, family affiliation, foundation, donor network, or former engagement in any materials. Correction to all donors contacted under implied Heart Vale support. Reimbursement of wedding-related costs incurred after Mr. Vale's office allowed unauthorized third-party involvement. And no personal contact from Mr. Vale or his representatives outside legal channels. Adrian flinched at the last line. Good. Vivian looked at him, expecting him to object. He did not. Helen nodded slowly. Those terms seem reasonable as a starting point. Vivian stood. This board is allowing a broken engagement to dictate corporate action. No. I said. Your family allowed corporate ambition to invade a broken engagement. Her eyes burned. For years, I had wanted Vivian Vale to like me. Now I only wanted her to understand that I was expensive to underestimate. Mara gathered her documents. The meeting moved into executive session. We were asked to wait outside while the board discussed internal matters. In the hallway, Adrian followed. Mara stepped slightly between us. He looked at her. I need 1 minute. Need is not authorization, she said. I touched Mara's arm. It's fine. Stay close. She moved 10 feet away. Adrian stood before me in the quiet corridor. The city behind him through floor-to-ceiling glass. For once, he looked less like an heir and more like a man whose name was heavier than his body. I didn't know all of it, he said. I believed him. That was the tragedy. He had not needed to know all of it. He had only needed not to care enough to stop it. I know. His eyes searched mine. Then why are you looking at me like that? Because ignorance was the luxury you bought with my silence. He swallowed. Celeste lied to me. She used the door you kept open. I should have protected you. The words arrived too late. They still hit somewhere tender. I hated that. Yes. I said. You should have. He stepped closer. Let me fix it. No. You don't even know what I'm asking. I do. You're asking for access to the damage so you can manage how it reflects on you. Pain crossed his face. That's not fair. Maybe not. But it is familiar. He looked down. I called off her archive sponsorship. Good. I removed her from all Vale events. Good. I told my mother the prenup language was unacceptable. Good. He looked up. Frustrated. Is that all you can say? What do you want? Applause for closing doors after I walked out of them. His mouth tightened. For a second, I saw the old Adrian rise, the one who would have called me difficult, emotional, ungrateful. Then it faded. I miss you, he said. The corridor seemed to narrow. In my old life, those words would have resurrected me. In this life, they sounded like a man missing electricity after forgetting who paid the bill. No, I said softly. You miss being certain I would stay. His face went still. I walked back to Mara. Behind us, the boardroom doors opened. Helen Ward stepped out. Miss Hart, she said, the board will issue formal written confirmation by end of day. We will also begin internal review of all heart-related references. Thank you. Her eyes softened. Your grandmother would have admired your precision. That almost broke me. Thank you. I said again, quieter. As we left, Adrian remained in the hallway. He did not follow. That night, Vale Holdings released a carefully worded statement acknowledging that prospective Heart Vale initiatives had been preliminary and would not proceed. It confirmed that no Heart Foundation partnership was active. It also announced an internal review of third-party access to donor communications. Celeste's archive website went offline within hours. By morning, 2 sponsors had withdrawn. By afternoon, Vivian Vale resigned from the Meridian Charity Advisory Board. Consequences. Not revenge fantasies. Real consequences. Doors closed. Invitations vanished. People stopped answering calls. The social world did not punish cruelty because cruelty offended morality. It punished embarrassment because embarrassment threatened access. I understood that now. At 6 p.m. a package arrived at my apartment. No sender name. Inside was the engagement ring, the heirloom I had returned through council that morning, with a note in Adrian's handwriting. This belongs with you. I stared at it. Then I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because even now he thought belonging could be assigned by the person who had failed to value it. I placed the ring back in the box. Then I placed the box in my safe, not as a memory, but as an item awaiting formal return receipt. My phone buzzed from an unknown number. I should have ignored it. I answered. Adrian's voice came through, rougher than I had ever heard it. I know you blocked me. Then respect the message. Please don't hang up. That word, please. Adrian Vale had rarely used it with me. He gave instructions, expectations, corrections, not please. I said nothing. He continued. I'm outside your building. My body went cold. Leave. I need to see you. No. You don't. I ended everything with Celeste. I confronted my mother. I told the board I take responsibility. I'll issue any statement you want. I'll sign anything. Just come downstairs. The old Evelyn stirred. A wounded part of me wanted to see him reduced. Wanted to watch him stand beneath my window and ache. Wanted proof that I had mattered. But proof was dangerous when it came from the person who had denied it. What do you want, Adrian? Silence. Then, quietly, I want to marry you. My hand tightened around the phone. There it was, the sentence I had once wanted more than breath. Now it arrived like a debt collector after the house had burned down. I have a ring, he said. Not the heirloom. A new one. Chosen by me. For you. I closed my eyes. In another life, I had begged him to choose anything for me with intention. Flowers. Dinner. A song. A chair in his office that was mine. He had always been too busy. Now loss had made him attentive. How tragic. How useless. Go home. I said. Evelyn, no. I'll wait. Then you'll wait alone. I ended the call. For a long moment, I stood in the quiet of my apartment. Then I walked to the window. Far below, beneath the building awning, Adrian stood in the rain, no umbrella. Dark coat. A small box in his hand. The image should have felt like victory. It did not. It felt like a delayed scene from a movie I no longer wanted to finish. My intercom buzzed. I did not answer. My phone lit with a message from Mara. Do you need me? I looked down at Adrian again, then typed back. No. I need to do this myself. I picked up my coat and went downstairs. Rain made the city honest. It stripped polish from glass, blurred expensive cars, flattened carefully styled hair, and turned everyone waiting outside into the same damp silhouette under the same indifferent sky. Adrian stood beneath the awning, but the wind had pushed rain onto his coat anyway. His hair was wet at the edges. His face looked pale under the building lights. He turned when I came through the doors. For a second, neither of us spoke. 3 years of another life stood between us. One engagement party. One cancelled wedding dress. One boardroom full of evidence. One ring in his hand. He looked at me like a man seeing a locked door where he had expected a hallway. Thank you for coming down, he said. I came down so you would leave. Pain flickered in his eyes. A month ago, I would have softened that sentence. Tonight, I let it stand. He held up the ring box. I know I don't deserve a yes tonight. No, I said. You don't deserve the question. His hand lowered. The rain filled the silence. He looked at the box as if it had betrayed him. I bought it after the board meeting, he said. I thought about what you said, about never asking what you wanted. So I tried. I chose this myself. Adrian. It's not a family ring. It's not tied to Vale. It's just, too late. He closed his eyes. I hated how tired he looked. I hated that some part of me still recognized the line of his shoulders, the scar near his thumb, the mouth that had almost smiled at me 100 times but rarely did. Love did not vanish just because wisdom arrived. It simply lost authority. He opened his eyes. I was wrong. Yes. I treated you like you were inevitable. Yes. I let Celeste take space she had no right to take. Yes. I let my mother turn our engagement into strategy. Yes. His jaw trembled once. I hurt you. That was the first sentence that mattered. It reached me, not enough to move me backward. Enough to honor the wound. Yes. I said softly. You did. He stepped closer. Then stopped himself. I thought duty would become affection. I thought if we had enough time, we would become something real. No. I said. You thought my patience would become consent. His face tightened. I don't want Celeste. This was never only about Celeste. I know. Do you? He looked at me helplessly. I had never seen Adrian helpless before, angry, distant, controlled, impatient, yes, never helpless. It would have been easy to mistake that for transformation. But desperation was not the same as growth. You want to marry me now because losing me cost you something. I said. Your board questioned you. Your mother lost influence. Celeste embarrassed you. Your projections collapsed. Your image cracked. And somewhere inside all that damage, you finally noticed the woman who had been absorbing the impact. His voice was low. That isn't all. Maybe not. But it is enough. He flinched. I looked at the ring box. Did you wonder what kind of ring I would want before tonight? He did not answer. Did you know I hate oval diamonds because everyone kept telling me how lucky I was to wear one chosen by dead people who never knew me? His face went still. Did you know I wanted a small wedding in a garden, not a museum reception with 700 guests? Silence. Did you know I stopped eating strawberries because Celeste was allergic and you asked me not to serve them at our engagement brunch? He whispered. I didn't know that mattered. I smiled sadly. That was the marriage. Adrian. 1,000 things that mattered only to me, dismissed because they were inconvenient to someone else. Rain struck the pavement beyond the awning. He looked down at the box again. I can learn. I hope you do. His eyes lifted, sharp with sudden hope. I ended it before it could grow. For someone else. For yourself. Not for me. He stared at me. I love you, he said. The words hung between us, beautiful and useless. In my last life, I had died waiting for them. In this one, I survived them. No. I said. His face broke, not dramatically. Adrian did not collapse. He did not shout. He simply looked. For one naked second. Like a man who had brought water to ashes and expected a forest. You don't believe me. I believe you feel loss. I believe you feel regret. I believe you want me now. But love that only speaks after consequence is not the kind I trust. He swallowed. I'll wait. Don't. Evelyn, no. Waiting is just another way to make your hope my responsibility. That stopped him. I took one step back toward the door. We are over. Not paused. Not healing. Not complicated. Over. His fingers closed around the ring box. What am I supposed to do with this? Live with it. The answer was cruel only if he expected me to rescue him from the result of his choices. I did not. Before I went inside, he said. Was any of it real? I turned. That question deserved honesty. Yes. I said. That's why it hurt. Then I walked through the doors and did not look back until I reached the elevator. By then, he was still outside. But I was already rising. The final public statement came 3 days later. Heart Foundation announces independent women's legal initiative. Ends all prospective Veil-affiliated programs. My father stood beside me at the press conference, not in front of me. That mattered. Mara stood near the wall, arms crossed, watching reporters with the calm suspicion of a woman who built in minute increments. The room was smaller than the engagement ballroom, but brighter. No roses, no champagne tower, no family crest carved in ice. Just a podium, microphones, and my name printed correctly on the announcement behind me. Evelyn Hart, founder, Hart Women's Legal Independence Fund. Not Adrian's fiancée. Not future Mrs. Vale. Not Alliance representative. Me. I stepped to the microphone. Thank you for being here today. The Heart Foundation is announcing a new initiative offering legal support to women navigating coercive financial agreements, family pressure, engagement disputes, and marital asset concerns. Cameras clicked. I continued. This fund was created because too many women are told that dignity is selfish, that boundaries are dramatic, and that asking questions before signing legal documents means they lack trust. My father looked down. I had not told him that line in advance. Good. Trust should never require silence, I said. And love should never require a woman to disappear inside someone else's plan. A reporter raised her hand. Miss Hart, is this initiative connected to your broken engagement with Adrian Vale? I knew the question would come. Yes, I said. The room stirred. I let them have the truth without spectacle. My personal experience made me aware of how easily emotional pressure and legal language can overlap. I am fortunate to have resources, counsel, and family support. Many women do not. This fund is for them. Another reporter asked, do you believe Vale Holdings acted improperly? Mara's eyes sharpened. I answered carefully. Vale Holdings has issued corrections regarding any implied Heart-affiliated programs. I consider that matter legally contained. Contained. Not forgiven. Not forgotten. Contained. Are you and Mr. Vale reconciling? The room waited. So did some old ghost inside me. I leaned slightly toward the microphone. No. One word. Clean. Final. The clip traveled faster than anything else. No. People made edits of it, quoted it, turned it into headlines. Some called me cold. Some called me brave. Some called me privileged. Some called me bitter. I no longer organized myself around being understood by strangers. Celeste Monroe disappeared from public events for 2 weeks. Then her archive released a statement admitting that several sponsorship inquiries had created confusion regarding affiliations. 2 board members resigned. 1 donor requested funds be returned. Another redirected their grant to my legal fund. I did not celebrate. I filed the statement. Vivian Vale stepped down from 2 advisory boards and retreated into the kind of silence wealthy women used when they wanted consequences to look like scheduling conflicts. Adrian remained CEO designate, but not untouched. The board appointed an oversight committee for partnership disclosures. His mother's influence narrowed. His office staff changed. His name no longer opened every door without questions. That was enough. I did not need him destroyed. I needed him unable to keep benefiting from what he had done. A month after the rain, I returned the new ring through counsel, unopened. Mara handled the receipt. You didn't even look? She asked. No. Not curious. I thought about it. No. She smiled. That may be the healthiest thing you've ever said. My apartment changed slowly. I replaced the formal dining table I had bought because Vivian once said a wife should be ready to host 12 at any time. I bought a round table instead, one that seated 4 comfortably and did not look like a negotiation. I stocked strawberries in the refrigerator. The first time I ate one, standing barefoot in my kitchen at midnight, I cried so hard I had to sit on the floor. Freedom was not always grand. Sometimes it was a fruit you had stopped buying to make another woman comfortable. My father and I began having breakfast once a week. The first few were awkward. He asked too many business questions. I answered too sharply. We both learned. One morning, he placed an old folder beside my coffee. What is this? Your grandmother's notes from when she started the foundation. I opened it. Her handwriting filled the pages, bold and slanted. A woman must know which doors are exits before she admires the room. I ran my fingers over the ink. My father cleared his throat. I should have taught you that. I looked at him. Yes. He nodded. No excuses. It was a beginning. Not a perfect one. But mine to accept or refuse. The legal fund opened its first application cycle in spring. The first woman who came to us was 24. Engaged to a man whose family wanted a simple property understanding before the wedding. She sat across from me in Mara's office, hands twisting in her lap, and said, he told me I was ruining everything by asking a lawyer to read it. I felt the old ballroom under my feet. Then let's ruin the right things. Mara laughed from the doorway. The woman cried. We helped her. Then another. Then another. Not every story ended cleanly. Not every woman left. Not every man became sorry. Real life rarely gave perfect justice. But each file, each consultation, each signature delayed until understood, felt like returning pieces of myself to women I would never have known in my previous life. Adrian sent one final letter 6 months after the broken engagement. Not a text, not flowers, not a ring, a letter. Mara scanned it first. It's not threatening, she said. Do you want it? I almost said no. Then I took it. His handwriting was controlled. Evelyn, I will not ask you to respond. You were right that I noticed too late. You were right that I confused your patience with consent and your competence with obligation. I have spent months discovering how much of my life was made easier by your invisible work. That is not a confession worthy of forgiveness. It is simply true. I am sorry for the engagement party. I am sorry for Celeste. I am sorry for the agreement I did not read carefully because I assumed anything involving you would resolve itself. I am sorry for making you smaller in rooms where I should have made space for you. I hope the life you build is large enough to forget me. Adrian. I read it twice. Then I folded it. There was a time I would have pressed that letter to my chest like proof. Now I placed it in a file labeled personal closure and put it away. Not because it meant nothing. Because it no longer decided anything. That evening, I hosted dinner at my apartment. Mara came. My father came. Daniel from the museum came with his husband. Helen Ward came with a bottle of wine older than some grudges and better company than most apologies. We ate at my round table. We served strawberries with dessert. No one discussed Vale unless I brought it up. I did not. After everyone left, I stood by the window and looked out at the city. Somewhere out there, Adrian Vale was living with the absence he had created. Celeste Monroe was learning that borrowed power came with invoices. Vivian Vale was discovering that control did not look elegant once people named it. And I was here, barefoot, ringless, whole. My phone buzzed with a calendar reminder. Tomorrow. First board meeting for Heart Women's Legal Independence Fund. I smiled. In my previous life, I had walked toward a man who never chose me and called it destiny. In this life, I walked away from him and called it mine.